I never thought I'd see my husband smirk at a divorce petition. But there he was, expensive suit, whiskey in hand, leaning back in his chair like I'd just made a joke. "You'll be back by Christmas," he said. No fear. No sadness. Just that damn smirk. He didn't even bother to read the papers. Just tossed them aside like they were a grocery list. And that was the moment I knew. I wasn't just ending a marriage. I was starting a war. My name is Laura Whitmore. And for 12 years I played the perfect corporate wife. Laughed at the galas. Smiled for the press. Organized charity brunches and raised our son while my husband, Nathan, ran Whitmore and Clark, the consulting firm he co-founded with his best friend, Alan. At least that's what the world thought. But behind the scenes, Nathan ran nothing. Alan built the empire. Nathan took the credit. I took notes. I never intended to leave him, not at first. Believed in vows. I believed in family. I believed for far too long in him. But people like Nathan don't love. They acquire. And once the shine fades, they replace you. Started small. Business trips that turned into weekends. Phone calls he took in the bathroom. The scent of a woman's perfume that lingered on his coat. Excuses. Gaslighting. Deflection. But what shattered the illusion wasn't the affair. It was the dinner party. We were hosting a fundraiser at the Whitmore estate. He'd invited clients, investors, and politicians. The mayor was there. So was the governor's son. And me. I was dressed like a porcelain doll, poured into a black dress I didn't choose, paraded around like a product. At dinner, someone joked, "I heard Laura used to work in finance. Must be nice having a brain and beauty." And Nathan, eyes gleaming, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "She used to work. Now she spends my money. Don't give her any ideas." Everyone laughed. Even Alan. I just smiled. But something inside me broke, and something else ignited. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I started planning. That same night, after the guests left, I went down to the basement and opened the fireproof box my father left me before he died. Inside was everything he ever taught me: stock ledgers, books on corporate law, and most importantly, his old journal. My father was a financial analyst. Anxious and paranoid. He raised me to read contracts before bedtime and balance checkbooks before brunch. Nathan never cared. That was his mistake. I started volunteering at a local nonprofit as a financial advisor. To give back, I said. What Nathan didn't know was that Alan sat on their board. And over coffee one morning, he let something slip. "We should have made you a partner too. You probably would have protected the IP better." That's when it hit me. Alan wasn't loyal to Nathan. He was loyal to the company. And Alan liked me. Trusted me. He didn't know I was collecting data. Over the next 18 months I built a file, hundreds of pages deep. Emails, expense reports, patent filings, shareholder structures, ownership breakdowns. It turned out Nathan didn't even own 40% of the company. Alan held the majority. And the rest, spread across silent investors, one of whom was a shell company I'd helped him set up, and legally controlled. It was in my maiden name. He'd forgotten it existed. By the time I filed for divorce, I had enough documentation to map out the entire corporate ecosystem of Whitmore and Clark. And I wasn't planning to destroy him. I was planning to replace him. But first I had to play my part. He called me needy. I nodded and played hurt. He bragged about his new girlfriend, a junior executive named Mia who looked like a knockoff influencer. I smiled and offered her coffee. He told me I'd be lucky to walk away with the house and a fraction of the savings. I told him I'd settle for less if we kept things civil. "Sign here," he said, handing me a one-sided prenup amendment drafted by his lawyer. I smiled, read it over, and said I needed time. He called me ungrateful. Then he made the real mistake. He threatened custody. "You won't get full custody, Laura. Not after I tell them about your emotional instability. Courts don't like unstable mothers." Froze. That was the only time I let him see fear. And then I let it harden into fire. My lawyer's name is Danielle Reyes. She's brilliant, cold, and expensive. The kind of woman who's not intimidated by threats. She documents them. Danielle reviewed the file I gave her and whistled softly. How long have you been compiling this? Almost 2 years. She closed the folder. You're not filing for divorce, Laura. You're filing a hostile takeover. Exactly. We filed in March. Nathan laughed. Called it a power play. He told his friends I'd be begging him to settle by the summer. By April, he'd posted photos with Mia on a yacht I paid for. By May, he moved into the penthouse and posted an Instagram caption that read, "Starting fresh with a real partner." By June, he got served. Not just divorce papers, but an injunction, freezing all corporate shares pending court review. Because Danielle had found something else. The original bylaws of Whitmore and Clark. The ones before they restructured. The ones that named me as a provisional trustee for Alan's shares should he become incapacitated. Alan had a stroke last year. He was recovering, but still considered unfit for board duties. And guess who held temporary power of attorney? Me. The court date was set for August. Nathan had no idea what was coming. He still believed he held all the cards. But I wasn't playing his game anymore. I built my own table. And he'd be lucky if I let him sit at it. The morning of the hearing, I wore navy. Not black, too formal. Not red, too confrontational. Navy was calm, controlled, strategic, like me. Danielle met me at the courthouse with a tablet and a smile that could cut steel. Nathan's lawyer brought a media consultant, she whispered. He's expecting this to get ugly. Public. That was fine by me. Let the world watch. Nathan strolled in with Mia on his arm, wearing that smug grin that once made me fall for him. Back before I realized charm was just a weapon in his arsenal. He looked over at me and winked. Winked. Like this was all just theater. Like I was playing a role in his story. The bailiff called us to order. The first part of the hearing was standard. Financial disclosures, custody mediation attempts, timelines for discovery. Nathan played the composed executive. My client has generously offered her the house, a monthly stipend, and joint custody with liberal visitation, his lawyer announced. Danielle didn't flinch. We reject. We will be submitting a formal motion to divide assets based on actual ownership structures of Whitmore and Clark, and its shell subsidiaries. Nathan turned. You're not entitled to any of that. Danielle slid a file toward the judge. Actually, Your Honor, Ms. Whitmore has legal authority over a holding company that owns 12.5% of Whitmore and Clark, and temporary control of Alan Wexler's 38% due to medical incapacitation. We are submitting documentation, along with a request for injunctive relief barring Mr. Whitmore from selling, transferring, or leveraging any company assets. The smirk slipped. Nathan stood up. This is absurd. That agreement is over a decade old. It's not even. The judge raised a hand. I'll review the documents. Sit down. For the first time in our entire marriage, Nathan was silent. Not because he was defeated, but because he was confused. He didn't know how I'd done it. And I hadn't even played the last card yet. That afternoon, the court granted a temporary freeze on Whitmore and Clark assets and required Nathan to disclose all financial activity from the past 5 years. The court also recognized my legal status as interim trustee of Alan's shares. He was stunned, and I walked out without looking back. Later that night, Mia showed up at our former house. I found her pacing on the porch, makeup streaked, stilettos in hand. You set him up, she said, voice trembling. I gave him a chance, I said calmly. He made choices. She shook her head. You don't understand. He told me I'd be so after the divorce. He said the company was ours now. I felt almost sorry for her. You're not even an employee, Mia. He lied to you too. 3 weeks later, the board meeting took place. Alan, still recovering, sent a statement in writing, formally designating me as his voice until he returned to full capacity. With my 12.5% through the shell company and Alan's 38%, I had majority control, 50.5% of the vote. Nathan walked into the meeting with his usual swagger. It evaporated the moment the voting began. We were reviewing a proposed acquisition deal he'd been pushing for months. It was risky, flashy, and borderline illegal. Danielle had already flagged 2 conflicts of interest. Nathan stood to speak. This acquisition will take Whitmore and Clark global. We're talking 8-figure returns in the first quarter. I raised my hand. As acting trustee for Alan's shares, I said, I move to reject the proposal due to conflict of interest, lack of fiduciary transparency, and risk of long-term insolvency. Beat of silence. Then the vote. 4 against, 3 in favor. Nathan stared at me like I was a stranger. What are you doing? He asked quietly. Understood. Protecting the company. From you. The next morning, news broke that Nathan Whitmore was being investigated for corporate malfeasance, insider trading, and financial coercion. I hadn't leaked it. Danielle had. And now that the assets were frozen, Mia was gone. So was the penthouse. Our next court appearance wasn't for divorce. It was for restitution. Danielle had uncovered irregularities. Nathan had been moving company funds into offshore accounts under the name of consulting services, many of which listed Mia as the recipient. The judge issued a court-ordered audit, and I got to sit across from him as it all came undone. I trusted you, he whispered at one point. No, I replied. You used me. And you underestimated me. He looked away. But I wasn't done. 3 weeks later, the divorce settlement was finalized. Full legal custody of our son. The family estate. A $3.2 million restitution payment to be paid over 4 years. And most importantly, Nathan was permanently removed from any decision-making role at Whitmore and Clark. It was over, or so I thought, until I received a call from Alan's attorney. Laura, he said, Alan's stepping down permanently. He wants you to have his shares. Froze. What? You heard me. He's watched you, trusted you. He's naming you successor. Me. The girl who used to take minutes during board meetings. The woman they laughed at when she said she missed working in finance. The wife they assumed would crumble. I wasn't just walking away with a settlement. I was walking away as CEO. Alan's lawyer wasn't joking. By the following week, I received the formal documentation. Alan was permanently resigning and transferring his 38% of Whitmore and Clark directly to me. With my 12.5% stake already under my name, I now held 50.5% of the company outright. Not just as an interim trustee but as its true majority owner. The board ratified the transition within days. Nathan didn't attend the meeting. He sent a proxy. His new lawyer, a stiff man with cold eyes and a portfolio full of desperate motions to contest the transfer. Every one of them was denied. Alan had full rights to assign his shares. And I was his chosen successor. I became CEO of Whitmore and Clark on a Monday. No press. No announcement. Just a quiet transition logged in the official filings and published, ironically, by Nathan's former PR firm under the headline, Laura Whitmore named CEO of WNC amid leadership shift. He must have choked on his morning coffee. That same day, Danielle sent a letter to Nathan's attorney. Effective immediately, Ms. Whitmore declines the monthly spousal stipend and respectfully requests it be redirected to a fund in their son's name, under sole maternal management. Additionally, she requests a formal cease in all direct communication from Mr. Whitmore. All correspondence should now be conducted through legal channels. She was done being spoken to. So was I. My first act as CEO wasn't revenge. It was repair. I called an emergency board meeting and invited only one media outlet to cover it. Discreetly, of course. I presented a full audit of the company's recent projects, exposed several loopholes Nathan had buried, and redirected over $1.6 million back into the company's long-neglected employee wellness programs. I met personally with every department head. Listened, and within 2 months morale soared. Contracts stabilized. A key client who had nearly walked out returned. So did the investors. Turns out when a company is led by someone who actually cares about its future, people notice. Nathan tried once more to claw his way back. I received a letter hand-delivered to my home, a desperate plea in his handwriting. Laura, I was wrong. I let my ego destroy us. I know you hate me, but I never stopped loving you. I don't want to fight anymore. Let's work something out for the company. For our son. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and handed it to Danielle. She shredded it without reading. But the real twist came 6 months later. The company was thriving. I was settled. And for the first time in years I felt peace. That's when Alan's personal assistant, Lisa, called me and asked to meet for coffee. She brought a small box. No explanation. This was in Alan's safe. He asked me to give it to you if he ever permanently retired. I think he knew this would happen. Inside was a single document, dated 10 years ago. It was a silent partner agreement. Notarized. Legally binding. It stated that in the event of either co-founder's incapacity or exit, control of the company should pass to Laura Whitmore, provided she still possessed a minimum of 10% vested equity. It was all pre-written. Before I even married Nathan, I sat there stunned. Lisa leaned in. You know what Alan told me once? He said, Nathan has charm. Laura has vision. If things go sideways, I know which one can actually rebuild from rubble. I never told Nathan. He still thinks I outplayed him in court. That I manipulated legal channels, coerced Alan, pulled corporate strings. Let him think that. The truth is, Alan chose me long before Nathan broke me. The final clause of the silent partner agreement was poetic. It read, in business, silence is often mistaken for weakness. But a quiet strategist is still a strategist. Let them laugh while you build. Let them laugh. That line stayed with me. They laughed when I filed for divorce. They laughed when I walked into court. They laughed when I dared to challenge a man they thought was untouchable. But the day the settlement was signed, the day I was named CEO, the day I fired every executive Nathan installed to protect his empire, no one was laughing anymore. Nathan now lives in a modest condo uptown. The penthouse was seized to pay back corporate restitution. Mia left him after the press got wind of her fake consulting firm and the gifts he wrote off as expenses. She sold her story to a tabloid. They called it, The Mistress Who Lost Everything. I don't blame her. She was just another woman caught in his illusion. As for me, I rebuilt Whitmore and Clark with a focus on equity, transparency, and long-term vision. We launched a scholarship fund for young women in finance, named in honor of my father and my son. He sees me come home late from work, exhausted but fulfilled. Sometimes he asks if I miss being married. I always smile. No, I don't miss being married to someone who thought I was replaceable. But I do miss being underestimated. Because that's where the power was. In silence, in patience, in the belief that one day, they'd see me not as the woman who left, but as the woman who won. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.